She used to be his everything, his love, his dream, his reason to live. And then she betrayed him, choosing someone else, younger, brighter, better. He went through hell to stand back up, forgot her, and built a new, happy family. But 6 years later, she came back. With empty eyes, broken, holding 2 children in her arms, begging for help. What is a man supposed to do when the one who crushed him to pieces shows up again? Save the woman who once betrayed him? Or close the door forever? This is a story of pain, revenge, and the line where compassion ends. A story that proves some mistakes come with a price too high to pay, and sometimes there are no second chances. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watch this video from. Now, let's get started. If someone were caught betraying a partner, you'd think they'd recognize that any path leading back to reconciliation had long since gone up in flames, reduced to nothing but embers of broken trust. How could anyone bring themselves to stand before the very person they wounded, facing the destruction they left behind? And yet, here I am, watching such an attempt unfold. This isn't something happening in the present. It's a memory from 6 years ago, one that I believed was buried for good. My first wife, Aria, the woman who abandoned me for a younger man, has resurfaced after all these years. I am 42 now, married again, and a proud father to a daughter who will celebrate her first birthday in just a few months. But the story I am about to share takes place in my early 30s, during my first marriage. I met Aria when I was 30, and she was 24. Our connection was instant, sparked at a party where we first crossed paths. She was just beginning her journey in fashion design, while I was transitioning into entrepreneurship after spending half a decade in the software industry. At the time, my business wasn't a massive success, nor was I raking in millions, but it provided a comfortable life. Many details of that period have blurred over time, but I do remember that within a few months of dating, Aria moved into my apartment. Before her, I had lived alone. Aria had an undeniable allure. Looking back, I realize it was her infectious energy that captivated me most. She was extroverted, effortlessly charming, and breathtakingly beautiful. The first time I saw her at that party, she turned heads wherever she went. That kind of magnetism wasn't something you could ignore. Some might say it's shallow to acknowledge that her beauty played a role in my attraction to her, but when you're young, yes, 29 is still young, you often lack the wisdom to see beyond appearances. And sometimes, that lack of maturity comes at a cost, something I would come to understand later. We dated for 2 years before getting married in an extravagant ceremony. Aria had always dreamed of a wedding straight out of a fairy tale, and she made sure every detail matched her vision. Perfection was her obsession. Since childhood, she had envisioned the flawless wedding, and when the time came, she orchestrated it down to the last detail. It was a financial strain on me, though I didn't fully grasp the weight of it then. I was too focused on fulfilling my role as the ideal husband. For the first 2 years, everything appeared to be fine. I don't recall any significant conflicts during that initial period. But after our second anniversary, a shift began. Aria enrolled in a master's program for fashion, and with it, her demeanor started to change. She was driven, determined to make her mark in Hollywood or, at the very least, work for a prominent television network. Surrounded by younger classmates, most in their early 20s and fresh into adulthood, she found herself enchanted by their carefree energy. She became fascinated by their spontaneity, their hunger for adventure, and soon she started voicing regrets about marrying so young. At first, I dismissed her words as fleeting discontent. I assumed she'd outgrow the excitement of late-night parties and casual flings, eventually appreciating the depth of real commitment. But instead of fading, her new lifestyle only became more entrenched. Weekend getaways, late-night social events, and nights spent away from home. Meanwhile, I was immersed in my business, tackling its challenges head-on, believing my personal life was stable, or so I thought. Her program lasted 18 months, and I expected things to settle once she graduated. But even after finishing school, she remained caught up in the same whirlwind. Around that time, my business hit a rough patch, and I found myself struggling with debt. Rather than standing by my side, Aria ridiculed my choice to pursue entrepreneurship, conveniently overlooking the fact that I had been the one keeping us afloat financially. Even when she had worked, her earnings had been modest compared to mine. I had taken on our financial burdens willingly so she could follow her dreams without worry. Then there was Logan, a fellow student from her program who managed to secure a job at one of the city's top design houses. Aria became infatuated with him. She started drawing comparisons between us, his budding career, his confidence, his humor, even his physique. Meanwhile, I was clocking in 12 to 14-hour days, building something meaningful. I had let my health take a back seat, something I regret now, and I certainly didn't have the sculpted jawline or toned body that Logan apparently did. Gradually, she found in him what she no longer saw in me. He was an intern with plenty of free time, someone who could offer her his undivided attention. Maybe he was more charming, maybe he had an effortless charisma that I lacked in my exhausted state. Eventually, she made her choice. One evening, I came home to find a note stuck to the refrigerator. The words on the paper shattered me. "I'm sorry. I can't do this in person, so I'm leaving this note. I'm moving to LA with Logan. He makes me laugh. He makes me feel alive. Something you stopped doing long ago. You're not the man I married. You've lost your spark, your looks. You're fading into the background. Logan is younger, more attractive, and he excites me. I want to experience life with someone like him." My world crumbled. But the thing about pain is that it doesn't last forever. I threw myself into my work, using the heartbreak as fuel. Ironically, it was in that period of turmoil that my business truly flourished. Looking back now, it was a disguised blessing. 2 years later, at a business event, I met Jenny. What started as a friendship grew into something more, and eventually, we built a life together. Now we have a 10-month-old daughter, and life is everything I could have hoped for. Jenny is everything Aria wasn't: kind, compassionate, and above all, my true partner. The wounds of the past had long since faded into the background, until last week, when Aria unexpectedly returned. But that's a story for another day. Last week, something unexpected happened that unearthed a flood of memories I thought I had long buried. Aria reappeared. Yes, my first wife, the woman who had left me for a younger man, suddenly showed up at my office, asking for help. At first glance, I barely recognized her. The vibrant and self-assured woman I had once loved was now but a fragile remnant of who she used to be. She looked drained, her skin pale and her eyes hollow. She clutched a baby in her arms while a little girl, no more than 3 years old, sat quietly in the waiting area outside. If I hadn't noticed her sitting there, looking utterly defeated, I might have denied ever knowing her. But when she stepped inside my office, all pretense collapsed, and she broke down entirely. Her daughter remained in the reception area while she entered with the infant. Her tears came freely, apologies tumbling from her lips in a voice thick with sorrow. Seeing her after 6 years stirred emotions I hadn't expected. The last time I had looked at her, I had been in love with her, but now she was nothing more than a stranger. I had never had the chance to resent her, to despise her, or even to fully grasp the pain she had inflicted upon me. She told me she had returned to the home we once shared, only to discover it was no longer hers. I had sold it years ago after marrying Jenny, my second wife, and moved into a better house in a wealthier neighborhood. She had no idea I had remarried. Then, she began to recount her life after she had left me, how Logan, the man she had chosen over me, had treated her cruelly, especially after their daughter was born. She suspected him of cheating while she was pregnant, and when she confronted him, he dismissed her with heartless mockery. He was 6 years younger than her, and he weaponized that fact against her, belittling her appearance and age. She had become financially dependent on him and had no means of escape, forcing her to endure his mistreatment. Things spiraled further during her second pregnancy. He had been completely indifferent, never even visiting her in the hospital when she gave birth. Instead, he hurled insults at her, calling her degrading names: fat ant, old woman, cow. The humiliation was relentless. Eventually, she made the same choice she once had with me. She walked away. When she had left me, I had hoped she would regret it, that she would feel the weight of what she had done. But hearing her story now, seeing the suffering she had endured, I felt no sense of triumph, only pity. She begged for my forgiveness, saying fate had dealt her the same pain she had once inflicted upon me. She admitted she had been reckless, blind to the consequences of her actions. I told her I had already let go of the past, that I had moved on. Overcome with emotion, she grasped my hands, pressing them against her tear-streaked face, pleading for another chance. She promised to be the wife she had failed to be before. I gently withdrew my hands and told her the truth. I was married, and I had a child. I turned a framed photo on my desk toward her, letting reality speak for itself. She picked it up, staring at it through her tears, before breaking down completely. I had no words of comfort to offer, so I remained silent. She rose to her feet, her voice barely a whisper, as she admitted I had been her last hope. But after seeing that picture, she realized she had none left. Without another word, she walked out. As soon as she was gone, I called Jenny and told her everything. The encounter left me shaken, unable to focus, so I left work early. A heavy sadness settled in my chest. Jenny listened patiently and reassured me. She reminded me that Arya's suffering was not my burden to carry, that the choices she had made had led her here. I agreed. She had built her own misery. Yet, part of me expected her to reach out again. But she never did. I don't know where she is now. I know I've moved on. I love Jenny and our daughter. And yet, Arya's sudden return and the devastation she carried with her continue to linger in my thoughts. Over the past week, I have spoken about it with Jenny more than I probably should. She is not just my wife. She is my closest friend. But I don't want to burden her with these thoughts. Jenny trusts in our marriage, but she is also human. I don't want her to think I still have feelings for Arya. I don't. But something about Arya's reappearance, about the sheer depth of her despair, has unsettled me in a way I can't shake. The first update. It has been over 5 months since I first shared my story, how my ex-wife, the woman who had left me without hesitation, returned seeking another chance. When she realized I had a new family, she disappeared again. I hadn't heard from her since, until a few days ago. She showed up at my office once more. I was in the middle of an important meeting when my assistant handed me a note. Arya is here. Any concentration I had was instantly shattered. The meeting no longer mattered. I wrapped it up as quickly as possible and went to see her. She looked even worse than before. This time she admitted that after discovering I had moved on, she had gone back to Logan in a desperate attempt to salvage their relationship. But things had only gotten worse. She had recently learned that Logan had been involved with multiple women from his workplace. When she confronted him, he didn't even attempt to lie. He admitted it freely, telling her she was no longer attractive enough for him. Then, things escalated. He started to get physically violent. Now, she had nowhere to turn. She came to me asking for financial help. She explained that she had been searching for a job but hadn't been able to find anything stable. For the past 3 years, she had been out of the workforce, dedicating herself to raising their daughter. That gap in employment was now working against her, making it nearly impossible to secure a job. And if that wasn't devastating enough, she revealed something shocking. Logan had never actually married her. He had never believed in marriage, and had convinced her it was unnecessary. That was why she had once referred to Peggy as rudimentary. She had thrown everything away for a man who had never even considered making her his wife. And now, she was paying the ultimate price. She now regrets her decision, realizing that because they never married, she has no legal claim to financial assistance from him following their separation. Had they tied the knot, she would have been eligible for alimony. When I asked her how much she needed, she remained silent. Without pressing further, I handed her a check for $30,000. I told her this was the most I could offer and advised her to use it for temporary lodging, perhaps a motel, while she figured out her next steps. I suggested she consider any job that could help her regain her footing, even if it wasn't in the fashion industry. She took the money gratefully and left. This time, I found myself hesitating to tell Jenny about my meeting with Arya. However, after thinking it over, I realized that keeping it a secret might backfire if she found out through someone else. That evening, as soon as I got home, Jenny immediately sensed something was off and asked what was wrong. I decided to be honest and told her about Arya's request for financial help. Her response was measured. She didn't criticize me for helping, but firmly warned me against allowing Arya to take advantage of my generosity. I wasn't upset by Jenny's reaction because I understood where she was coming from. Her concerns were valid, and I reassured her that my actions were purely out of compassion, not lingering feelings. While she seemed slightly uneasy at first, she quickly moved past it. Now, on to my second update. I noticed some speculation in the comments, people suggesting that I might still have feelings for Arya, that I might take her back, or worse, betray Jenny. Let me be absolutely clear, none of that is even a possibility. Arya's sudden reappearance caught me off guard, especially given how dire her situation seemed. Even when she reached out again, I wasn't eager to see her. The only reason I offered any help was because it felt like the humane thing to do, something I would do for anyone in genuine need. But make no mistake, I haven't forgotten how she once treated me, the way she belittled me, laughed at my efforts, and discarded me after everything I had done for her. Those were some of the darkest times of my life, and being left after 4 years together wasn't something I could just erase from memory. So, to put any doubts to rest, I would never put at risk the life I've built with Jenny. I have firm boundaries when it comes to Arya, and I won't let history repeat itself. I'm not trying to target anyone with these words, I just want to set the record straight. I'll share further updates if anything significant happens. Now, on to the third update. I want to thank everyone for their feedback. After reading through the comments on my last update, I decided to have a completely open conversation with Jenny. I reassured her of my unwavering love and loyalty, making it clear that I would never do anything to jeopardize our marriage. Jenny is a strong and confident woman, but I didn't want even a shred of doubt lingering in her mind. Being honest with her lifted a huge weight off my shoulders. She told me she trusted me, but admitted that Arya's presence in my life made her uneasy. It wasn't jealousy. It was the fear that Arya might try to manipulate her way back in. Jenny has been my anchor, the one who stood beside me during my lowest moments. She is the mother of my child. I would never do anything to break her trust. About a week later, Arya contacted me again, this time asking for help in securing a rental. I told her I was too busy to assist. That should have been the end of it. But she started flooding my messages with complaints about how lonely and unfortunate she was, playing the victim. I treated her messages like spam and ignored them, but she persisted. Soon, her tone changed. Flirty texts, romantic emojis, and heart symbols started appearing. I shut it down immediately, making it clear that her behavior was inappropriate and needed to stop. She pleaded to stay in my life as a friend, but I firmly told her that I already had a best friend, my wife, Jenny. For a short time, she backed off. But it wasn't long before she resumed sending romantic messages and social media reels. I warned her that if she didn't stop, I would have no choice but to block her. I told her outright that my wife was uncomfortable with our conversations, and that I would not do anything to jeopardize our relationship. That seemed to finally drive the point home. Last week was my anniversary, and I wanted to make it a celebration Jenny would never forget. I surprised her with a trip to the Bahamas. I even recorded her reaction when I revealed the destination and shared it on social media. I went all out, booking a luxury beachfront suite, arranging a candlelit dinner in a secluded forest, setting up a floating breakfast, and planning several romantic experiences in the Caribbean. Normally, I don't post much online, but this time, I made sure to document every moment with heartfelt captions. Was part of me doing it to send a message to Aria? Maybe. Call it petty if you want. But I needed to make it abundantly clear that I was thriving with Jenny. And guess what? It worked. After seeing those posts, Aria stopped reaching out entirely. She even unfollowed me on all platforms. I felt relieved. It finally seemed like she got the message. Now, on to the fourth update. First off, thank you to everyone who sent anniversary wishes. The trip was absolutely incredible. For those who asked about our itinerary and costs, I've shared a separate post with all the details. As for Aria, I genuinely thought she had finally moved on. Unfortunately, I was wrong. A few days ago, she showed up at my office unexpectedly. When my assistant informed me she was waiting, I deliberately let her sit there for hours before seeing her. In the past, I had met with her right away, and I realized that might have sent the wrong message. When I finally stepped out to speak with her, I kept it brief, acting preoccupied, and barely acknowledging what she had to say. I wanted it to be abundantly clear that I had no interest in engaging with her any further. She was sinking into despair once more, utterly convinced that her life was spiraling beyond any chance of redemption. Tears traced paths down her cheeks as she lamented her struggles, fixating on the same hopeless thoughts over and over again. Her words circled in a loop of self-pity, and my patience was wearing thin. I pressed her to get to the point, making it clear that I wasn't here to entertain endless grievances. My bluntness struck a nerve. Her face reddened, irritation flickering in her eyes. And then, as I had anticipated, came the inevitable demand: money. Jenny had warned me about this. She had cautioned that Aria's requests had a way of escalating, becoming less of a plea and more of an expectation. She had been right. This wasn't a simple request anymore. It was a presumption, a given. This time, Aria insisted she needed either a house or at the very least $100,000. I wasn't struggling financially, but even for me, such a demand was absurd. I refused without hesitation. I told her plainly that I couldn't buy her a house, nor could I simply hand over such a significant sum. She adjusted her expectations slightly, claiming that $60,000 or $70,000 would be enough to restart her life, secure a home, cover bills, and ensure her children could go to school. Whether she truly believed she was entitled to my money or was simply testing my boundaries, I wasn't sure. But the audacity of it was infuriating. While I sympathized with her struggles, my sympathy didn't extend to funding her existence. She had no right to my resources. She had been the one to walk away, chasing what she thought was a better life. Now, she expected me to pick up the pieces of the disaster she had created. Frustration boiled over inside me as I demanded to know why she believed I owed her anything. In the past, I had helped her, not out of obligation, but out of simple generosity. When I called it charity, fresh tears spilled from her eyes. At that moment, whatever lingering pity I had for her evaporated. I had already done more than enough. I had given her the means to secure temporary housing, time to find a job, yet she had squandered it all. When her sobs finally subsided, she reached for my hand, gripping it with a desperate intensity. "You didn't mean that, right? About it being charity?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. I met her gaze with unwavering resolve. "I meant every word." She shook her head, unwilling to accept the truth. "You're lying. You still love me." I pulled my hand away sharply and warned her never to touch me again. Any love I had once held for her had long since withered. My heart belonged to Jenny and our daughter now, and I had no intention of letting my past threaten the life I had built. Years of suppressed anger surged forward as I reminded her of how she had thrown me aside, chasing excitement over loyalty, choosing fleeting thrills while trampling on everything we had. She had made her choice, and now she had to live with the consequences. Her expression darkened as she rose to her feet. I came here for help, not humiliation. I scoffed. I've done more for you than I ever needed to. You're not a victim. You just refuse to take responsibility for your choices. I won't let you manipulate me into feeling guilty. She had drained the last of my patience. Rather than appreciating what I had already done for her, she had tried to undermine my marriage, to drag me back into the chaos she thrived on. I wasn't playing that game. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her with such force that the walls trembled. As she disappeared down the hall, I called after her, "Don't ever come back." She didn't look back, didn't acknowledge my words, just kept walking. Maybe one day she would understand that hardship breeds humility, but at that moment, the lesson was lost on her. As for me, I was done. I had already instructed my receptionist that Arya was no longer welcome. If she ever tried to step foot in the building again, she would be turned away without hesitation. To ensure there were no loose ends, I blocked her on every possible platform, severing the last ties between us. My life was good, better than good. With Jenny and our daughter beside me, I had everything I could ever need. I refused to let the past cast its shadow over the happiness I had built. Not now. Not ever. This story has come to an end. Sometimes the past comes back to test who we've become. But it's important to remember, helping those who once destroyed our life is not an obligation. It's a personal choice. Forgiveness doesn't always mean giving someone a place in your life again. Sometimes the best thing we can do for ourselves is to close that chapter and move on, protecting our family, happiness, and dignity. Don't let someone else's mistakes destroy what you've spent years building. Remember, self-respect is knowing when to say no to those who once chose to betray you. Life doesn't give second chances to everyone, and it's up to us to decide who we let back in. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.